A problem that I have faced a lot when trying to assist my students with vocabulary is people will just say, how do I improve my vocabulary in general? And I don't know if you have any tips about this, because the idea of just expanding your vocabulary in general, that's a pretty daunting task, you know? So are there certain topics that appear more often, or just kind of thinking about the most effective specific vocabulary? Are there any particular areas
Gotcha.
that you would suggest?
Gotcha. Okay, so if a student wants to improve their vocabulary, I mean, I know like off the top of my head, there's like 2 or 3 different methods. And there's quite a few methods, but the 2 or 3 that come to mind now is number 1, there's this method called the gold list method. Yeah. And I'm in the process of trying this out, but a friend at a language conference told me about this. And she said that what you do is you're probably best jumping on Google before you hear my butchered description. But it's basically writing lists out of the words, of the terms that you want to learn, and then testing yourself the next day, and then moving through the list. The ones that you do remember, you don't repeat again. You just keep moving through the list like this. You're probably best just researching gold list method. But I'm in the process of testing this now. And I'm not going to be testing just singular vocabulary terms. I'm going to be testing myself on collocations. Because collocations, as you probably know, it's like 2 or 3 words that appear in succession together, and they have a higher percentage of appearing next to each other than other words.
Right. A lot of times I call that chunking.
Exactly, yes.
A lazy American way to say it. Collocations.
Yeah, I think chunking is sort of like a longer version, you know, and then collocations might be something like global warming. Yeah.
Yeah, you hear that one pretty often nowadays.
Exactly, yeah. So, I'd go for just like you said, the chunking and the collocations. And then what one tutor told me, which I thought was a really good method, was to listen to material that you find interesting. So if you're a really big fan of football, like the Premier League, then listen to podcasts in English about the football Premier League, you know? Or if you're a big fan of fishing, then listen to fishing podcasts or watch fishing documentaries in English. This way you'll really improve your vocabulary.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then another method, this is more for your writing, but when you are reading, and I suggest reading a lot, but circle the words that you think will be useful or that you don't know. A Kindle's good for this as well, because you can just like click it and boom, the translation pops up or the definition.
Kindle it's money right now. It's awesome.
Yeah. I use this for English if I want to find the definition.
Me too. Yeah, all the time.
Yeah. And I keep meaning to go back and review all the words that I've looked up. I've had my Kindle for like 5 years now, and I still haven't gone back to that list. It's daunting. But yeah, if you can go through some text, circle the words that you like, this definitely helps. And then just one final practical tip is once you've got the list of new words, try to use them at least 2 or 3 times that day. Yeah?
Yeah.
It might be a bit weird sometimes if you're squeezing in, I don't know, the word global warming while you're trying to order your lunch, but but it's worth doing, you know, like the more times you use that phrase, the more likely you are to remember it.
Yeah, I think those are all really sage pieces of advice. The 2 things I always tell my students that you mentioned, number 1 is just consume interesting material. Don't listen to stuff that's not interesting to you. And number 2, after you learn a new vocabulary or phrase or expression, you want to try to put that into practice as soon as possible. I think those are both super, super important. It's right on.
Absolutely, yeah. And if the student also has the luxury, like if they're living in an English-speaking country, they can maybe set themselves quests or something like that. Like this is what a teacher did in England when she received students. She'd set them out on quests. Like, okay, go down to the village and find out how much, I don't know, half a kilo of salmon is at this shop, you know, and just really force them to start speaking.
Right.
And they'd come back with the questionnaire full of answers. But yeah, I think it's a question of using it.
Yeah, I like that. And when you say quest, you mean like a challenge, a journey for our more American listeners. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, a journey challenge. Exactly.
Cool. So Ben, what are some other just common problems that you see a lot of people facing with the IELTS, simply because I'm not that familiar with the test? Apart from vocabulary, where do students tend to trip up a bit?
Well, if we look at the writing, this is a real pain point for students, especially students who come from specific rote learning educational backgrounds. Yeah.
Yes, as most of us do. Yeah.
Well, I mean, in Brazil, is that the case? Is it the case of memorization?
I would say, yeah, it's pretty by the book for the most part. Yeah.
That's interesting. Okay. I mean, it's similar in Spain as well, and it's definitely the case in Asia and in Russia as well, that it definitely stumps the students, because for part 2 of the writing exam, you might have a question which is something like, consumerism is an increasing trend in the Western world. Discuss the advantages and disadvantages.
That's not an easy one.
Yeah, no, exactly. And like students, a lot of students, they struggle. It's like, okay, what's the right answer here? And there's like, okay, you can say consumerism's good. You can say consumerism's evil. It doesn't matter what the answer is. It matters the quality of your argument and your ability to communicate and convince the reader with your argument. That's what's getting tested, you know?
Right.
So in theory, you could write, consumerism is the most beautiful thing this world has ever seen, you know, and you could back this up with your arguments, and you could build a whole case for this. Of course, it's not the most agreeable point of view, but if you can argue this case, and you do it grammatically perfect and in an eloquent way, you could probably walk away with a band 9.
Yeah. So it's almost like the idea of, I'm imagining like a formal debate club that you have in schools sometimes. That you pick an argument, you have to back it up with information. It doesn't matter which side you take, right?
Exactly. It doesn't even matter if you believe in the argument. In some cases, this can actually be a hindrance. Like if you really strongly believe, you can start getting passionate about it. You lose sight of the fact that this is a language exam, which is testing your ability to communicate, not your ability to generate intelligent ideas.
Yeah.
You know? And this is where a lot of students trip up and fall, because they want to communicate eloquent, intelligent ideas. These are usually more difficult to write down, pen to paper, you know?
Right.
And they get bogged down in difficult grammatical structures and in long sentences, and it doesn't make any sense. So I always say, go for a simple argument that can be expressed elegantly, rather than a complex, intelligent argument that's just you're shooting yourself in the foot if you do it like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When in doubt, keep it simple. I think that's always good advice.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the KISS principle, and keep it simple, no?
Keep it simple, stupid. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Cool. So, Ben, this is something that happens to me, not on a daily basis, but quite frequently. We have a student that they either want to study abroad or work abroad or apply for residency, and they have to take the IELTS. They ask us for advice. In general, we are not huge fans of like the traditional language schools. And in Brazil, that's kind of the only option. Is you go to a private school, you pay someone a lot of money, you work with them. Well, what recommendation would you give to that kind of person?
Well, first of all, Foster, I think we're in agreement, because I'm not a massive fan of the traditional process either. I think it's kind of medieval. You know, you sit there in a classroom with 3 other people that are all in cahoots with butchering the English language.
Yeah, feel free to talk as much trash about the traditional language system as you want. I promise I've already said worse on the podcast.
Okay, good. Yeah, I've lambasted it numerous cases and numerous times in my podcast as well. Like, it's absolute ludicrous that, a student will go there. There's two Chinese, three Saudis, a German, and I don't know, a Mexican, just for a good mix, and they're all there waiting for this teacher to teach them English or to teach them the IELTS exam. And even if you just look at this mathematically, say there's 5 students in there, if they all speak equal amount of time, that's 50 minutes and 10 minutes for the teacher who's the native English speaker or native English speaker level, So that means if I'm a student there, I have to listen for 40 minutes of somebody else who's not a native English speaker, Or that's if the speaking time's equally distributed, yeah? Or I listen to the teacher and then it's just like one-way communication. Either way, I'm not going to get any speaking practice. So what is the point of going to that classroom? And then, if we're talking about intensive English courses, which I just think are an absolute joke, okay, let's do an intensive English course and we'll do, I don't know, in 5 days, we're going to cover all 10 grammatical tenses or whatever it is, all the grammatical tenses we use in English, because after this week of studying them non-stop for 5 days and just being introduced to the rules, you're going to speak them fluently. It's just obvious, it's like, no, it's not how a language is.
It's such a racket. It's a scheme.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. The intensive, and we're going to cover all grammatical structures, and trust me, you'll be fluent by the end of the week. It's just, it's a disgrace, an absolute disgrace. And nowadays, with the internet, I think their days are numbered. If you want my honest opinion, they should have been gone long time ago. But the days are numbered, and I think the internet is just going to hasten their demise, which is very sad.
I really hope so. I'm not as optimistic as you, just because I know at least in Brazil, the traditional language schools, they just have so much money behind them. But I think it is democratizing very quickly, and we can only hope.
Yeah, can I just say one last thing?
Yeah, sure.
With the online, if you do online classes, online courses like we've got at my site, it's just so much more efficient because you can study when you want to. You don't have to organize your schedule around somebody else's timetable. You don't have to pay for some building in the middle of the city center. You don't have to pay for teachers' holidays and stuff like this. It's just so much more efficient. And going back to the calculation I said a few minutes ago about the speaking time, if it's a one-on-one class, it's going to be at least 30 minutes for you speaking and then 30 minutes listening to a native English speaker or listening to somebody proficient in the language, which is much better than listening to 2 Saudis, a German and a Chinese, talk in English. And then just one other thing, the internet's allowed is sort of a real specialization, so if you need somebody to help you with your accent, you can find that specific person. If you need somebody who, for us, for example, we've really focused on the writing section, and this has enabled us to just hire ex-IELTS examiners, writing examiners, and to find a teacher at that quality just to help you with your writing, it's not easy. So you can really sort of find qualified people that you think are more suitable for your learning style or more suitable for your needs. So in a normal language academy, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I think the personalization and specialization aspect, that's the most beautiful thing. Yeah. We only focus on pronunciation and accent reduction for Portuguese speakers. But if you're a software developer and you need to train for an interview, you can find a person that just does that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Cool. So, Ben, I know you are a little bit pressed for time, and so am I, but where can people find you on the internet? And can you just tell a little bit about what people can find on IELTSpodcast.com?
Gotcha. Okay. So when you go to IELTSpodcast.com,
not if, when.
yeah. Yeah, good point there. So when you go there and spend your money, no, I'm just joking. No, when you go there, you'll see a very lovely pop-up that everybody just loves. But you'll see a pop-up there, and I strongly recommend you put your email address in there, because you'll get like discounts, you'll get tutorials sent to you, you'll get notified when we've got new podcasts coming out, new episodes, and they come out like twice a week, once on a Wednesdays and then on a Saturday, and it's usually either myself talking about a specific part of the test, or I'll be talking with a student, a success story and how they passed, or I'll be speaking with an expert about vocabulary or about grammar or about essay writing or whatever. And also on the site, we've got lots of model essays. We've got full tutorials for helping students. And also, when you sign up, you'll get a big PDF full of like model essays and tips and tricks for helping you pass the exam. And also, you'll see there's an online course which has got a strong guarantee. It's called Jump to Band 7, or it's free. So that's because what happens, Foster, is a lot of students, they get stuck at band 6.5 or 6, and they really need like a push to get to the next level. So our course promises that. We can refund you if we don't get you there. But we also have an essay correction service where the students can send in their essays, and we'll give them some feedback on where they're going wrong, how they can improve, and what they need to do to get to band 7 or higher.
That's awesome.
So
that's awesome. That's amazing. So I know that will be super useful for a lot of our students, because for almost 2 years now, people have asked me those exact questions, and I did not have a good answer. Now we do.
I can send you over some more material as well, so you can just send that to them if you want to.
Absolutely. We will include all the links in the show notes. And Ben, thanks for coming on the show, man.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure, and thank you very much for having me.
Okay, bye-bye.